unlike anybody else, a hearing today.
And I'm actually chairing the hearings today. So for the record, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. And the new vice chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. So first off, really, truly, thank you all for coming down. I know it can be a challenge to take time off from work or get childcare or whatever, but it means so much to us to have you all with us and to hear your views and your priorities. I'm going to tell you about 3 of my bills. I think you all know that I have been working on 911 issues for the last 7 years when 3 people have died in my district. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about 3 that are women related. The first is I have legislation that I'm working on with a delegate from Baltimore County that is about a Jewish divorce or a get. Currently, if a husband does not give a woman a Jewish divorce, she is not legally single again and is not able to remarry within our faith. And it is really a terrible situation. They are called chained women. They are still chained to their husbands. And not only doesn't it offer them the flexibility and the freedom, but that situation is used as manipulation, and they are used to get better visitation, better alimony, or if you drop the domestic violence charges. So there are a lot of implications. So that's issue 1. Issue 2 I want to mention is about bathroom signage. How many times, ladies, have we waited while the men's room is empty, and we just, sometimes when we gotta go, we gotta go. Last night, Salisbury, the city of Salisbury just passed this law, and Baltimore City passed it last year. There are a number of states and major cities that have already passed it. We just think for people with disabilities, for folks who are transgender, and again, for women who don't like waiting in line, we can just change from men's and women's to just restroom or bathroom. And we think that makes sense. I'm working on that with Delegate Jared Solomon from Montgomery County. The third bill I want to mention, and Susan Lee has been a leader on this issue for many years, is what I call paycheck fairness. It's working towards pay equity. As I told the committee, I hope they kill my bill. My bill is the backup plan. So Senator Lee's bill would prohibit any prospective employer from asking about salary history anywhere in Maryland. So that would be public, private, nonprofit, or anyone. That is the law in a number of other states, but the problem is that that bill has been killed a number of years. So I put in a bill this year that says, let's at least get it started, and if we're not going to do the whole thing this year, then let's at least start and get our own house in order. So for state government, you wouldn't be allowed to ask for salary history. Why does that matter? Because it perpetuates pay inequities. And if I don't know what it is you used to make versus what the guy that you used to make, then I'm going to pay on an equitable basis, based on your experience, based on the qualification, based on the needs of the job, and not continuing to pay women, and especially women of color, significantly less than we pay men. So those are 3 bills that I thought I'd mention to you all. Again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to hand it off to Senator Lee to continue to share her work on pay equity and many other things. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Give Senator Kagan a hand, okay? First of all, I'm State Senator Susan Lee. I represent District 16 in the Senate. Thank you, Kate. This is my 2nd term, and I served 13 years in the House of Delegates. I took our wonderful Attorney General's place, Brian Frosch. So I serve on the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. I'm also the Senate Majority Whip. So I thank you all again for coming out here, braving the weather, and being advocates for bills that will uplift and empower women, children, and families. I'm really, really so grateful to you because we can't do it without you. Diana, let's give Diana a hand. You're a wonderful president, okay? Thank you. And also your leadership team, thank you, because I know it takes a team to do this, to come down here. I just want to thank you too for supporting my bills here and getting behind them, because it has made a difference. At least 3 of them have already passed the Senate, and I think the House too. One, it was SB 206. It has to deal with vacating minor nonviolent offenses that were committed by human trafficking victims because they were coerced to do that by their traffickers. That finally passed the Senate, and it passed the House too. Thank you for your help on that. We're just ironing out the differences of the bill, and we hope they'll get through. Another bill is SB 213 that shields the addresses and telephone numbers of domestic violence victims who witnessed a crime or they were crime victims themselves. Because we want them to be able to show up to the trial and also to get justice. I wanted to also mention one of my aides here, Carol Preston. Let's give her a hand. She's right there. If you need anything, please contact her. Also, the bill dealing with sexual solicitation of a minor through a guardian or parent. Unfortunately, sometimes parents are, they sell their children. That's SB 231. Thank you again for supporting that. It passed the Senate. And one bill which I still need your help on is SB 208. It deals with background checks on the sale of shotguns and rifles by private dealers. Why do we need it? Because a lot of persons who are not allowed to have guns, prohibited by law, go around the law and purchase these guns through private sellers. And they do it online at gun shows. There's no accountability. They can use those guns to commit crimes. So we're helping. Can you continue to advocate on that bill, SB 208? The House already passed this bill. The problem is, I think, the Senate. Also, next week, if you want to come down, SB 958 has to deal with ghost guns. You know what ghost guns are? You can create a gun through, assembling different parts. The problem is there's no serial number on there. There's no background check, no accountability. That's a really important bill too. Delegate DeMay is the lead sponsor in the House, and please go and support her too. The strangulation bill, SB 212, is still stuck in committee. Please continue to send emails to everyone in your district to get those bills out. SB 217, which Cheryl Kagan was speaking about, is my bill to ban those employers from asking applicants about their salary history. And as she said, why is that important? Because women of color, women and persons who worked for a nonprofit or in the public sector don't want their salary history to carry them to each and every job, especially those that were subject to past discrimination. It should be merit and qualifications. This should be a state that supports pay equity. And this follows on the heels of the bill that I passed in 2016, the Equal Pay for Equal Work, which is one of the strongest now in the nation. But thank you for your work on that. It got through SB 217, I believe it got through the Finance Committee, but we're not out of the woods yet because people can still amend it on the floor. They can try to destroy the bill through amendments. So keep up the support. And finally, I'm not going to go through every bill because it's going to be too long, but thank you for supporting every one of them anyway. SB 230, which deals with spousal defense. We want to repeal that. Just because you get married to someone doesn't mean they can rape you, they can commit a sexual offense against you, or do some horrible things to you, or other sexual crimes just because they marry you. Because the assumption is, or presumption is, that you're their property, and that's not the case. So I'm having problems getting it out of my committee, unfortunately, because of those old attitudes and the culture that exists today that they think that they should still be able to do that if they're married. So anyway, it says to be 230. Those emails are great that you sent. I saw them around. They're so effective. They're really nice, concise, distinct, and short. But it gets to the message. So anyway, I have a hearing today and with the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee, which I serve on. But Carol Preston is here. If you have any questions, she's doing a phenomenal job for me. And I wanted to thank you for all your advocacy and your commitment. do all this legislation that's good for women, children, and families. And thank you again for the privilege and honor of letting me serve you in the Maryland State Senate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Lee. Wonderful. And we're going to hear next from Delegate Acevedo, who's taking a little sip, but he knew he was up. Okay. Delegate, here we have Delegate Sarah Love from District 16. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Such the gentleman. Thank you, Delegate. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. You having a fun advocacy day? Yeah. Good, good. It's wonderful to see you down here. I am Sarah Love from District 16. Big shout out to my D16 advocates that are here today. Thank you for your work. I appreciate it. So my main focus this session is twofold. I'm calling it my plastics and privacy session. So trying to address the overuse of single-use plastics in our society. I have 3 bills addressing plastics, and then also looking at our privacy and all the information that the rapidly evolving technology is gathering on us. So I have bills on our geolocation. So your phone is a tracker, whether or not you know it. Your camera is marking where you are. Your steps, all of us have apps on our phone that give us how many steps we have and how long we've walked, and those track where we go. I believe that should be private information that companies shouldn't be gathering on us. Our biometrics, our iris scans, our facial scans, the fingerprint that we use to open our phone, very personal information. Companies shouldn't be trading it, profiting off of it, selling it. They should let us know if they're collecting, why they're collecting it. They should be required to destroy it. And like I said, not profit off of it. And then I have another bill having to do with cars, the electric vehicles, the autonomous vehicles, and the black boxes, and all the information that they are collecting on us. Happy to go into details, but I know there are a bunch of us here, and so I'm happy to turn the mic over. Delegate Acevedo, are you ready?
Delegate Lily Chi.
All right, so Delegate Lily Chi.
All right, District 15, give it up for Lily Chi.
My seatmate is always so kind to me. Delegate Acevedo is actually my seatmate on the board.
And you're punching back.
That's an inside joke. You're not supposed to share that. Thank you for your advocacy, for what you do every day, and for holding public officials accountable. This is very important. That's how democracy works. Thank you for driving the distance to speak up on behalf of our communities. We have a lot of exciting bills this session, and many of them you have already heard from my great, brilliant colleagues. I mean, I pinch myself every day for the opportunity to be able to serve and give back to this amazing community that made our stories possible. I'm still fairly new. This is my second session. My name is Delegate Lily Chi. Last name is Qi, in case some of you don't know me. District 15, which is Potomac Two Pools bill, with borders, treasure. So really, and I have great representatives from the community, Margaret and Kathy here. Thank you, from District 15. I serve on Economic Matters Committee, which is a committee that has very broad scope, overseeing business regulation, alcohol, tobacco regulation, utilities, which has to do with clean energy, and a lot of the economic justice issues also come to us, like the bandbox, people pay for equal work and that kind of thing. Personally, I have introduced the 13 bills this session, which, don't blame me, because I'm not introducing 3 dozen bills, okay? Like some of my colleagues. About half of them are small business or economic development related bills because of my background working for Montgomery County Economic Development. I know what's needed to remove some barriers for very small early stage businesses to grow jobs. And related to innovation and tech-driven economy, which is what we need to scale up and create the kind of quality, well-paying jobs that our community actually needs. And the other half of the bills are a mixed bag. from civil rights issues to human services to education bills. So I have two bills related to civil rights that I just presented yesterday. One is to establish a governor's commission on LGBTQ affairs. This is very important to me as mother of a gay son. I wish I had the courage and the skill to reach the conversation with my son sooner, so he didn't have to struggle on his own for so long until he told us after he graduated from high school, right? It's not enough to pass laws. We need to have a liaison entity between the communities and the government, so that we can communicate, engage, and celebrate, and make them feel a sense of normalcy and belonging. Okay, and see how we're actually implementing the laws that we have passed. We're not going to be the first state to claim that, but we can be the third state, because state of Washington and state of Pennsylvania already have those commissions. So I'm very hopeful it will get out of the committee. And the other one is to start collecting data on national origin discrimination. This is also very personal because I speak English as a second language. Even when I was working for the super progressive Montgomery County government, I heard a lot of complaints from people who speak English as a second language that they felt like they were being treated as technicians more than leaders. That they have to work harder, they have to be, and they get bypassed when it comes to training and educational growing opportunities, you know. So I want to start collecting data and see what kind of issues and patterns we have and how we can address those issues. One of my bills that I felt very proud of, and my district director, Lisa Dobbs, has worked very hard on for months, was to require certification for all of the sign language interpreters in our Maryland public schools. All of the sign languages interpreters in Maryland public schools, I would like to say, do very good, very hard, do a very hard job of serving our deaf and hard of hearing students. But the reality is over 90% of the deaf and hard of hearing children are born to hearing parents. So the parents and children struggle to communicate with each other. And sign language interpreters are oftentimes their first language model. If they cannot adequately interpret, the kids struggle and they're held back. They can't reach their potential. Maryland is only one of 5 states that have no certification requirements, which is shocking, okay? I worked out compromises with the unions, teachers union and employees unions to address all of their concerns. We worked very hard on this for months and they all now support it, okay? And MCPS also supports it. With some amendments that we're working on. So I'm very excited we reached this point. I think we need to put children's interests before the inconvenience of the institutions in implementing that. And then I think I should maybe mention one clean energy bill that I have this session, which I'm very excited about. I serve on Economic Matters Committee, which oversees utilities and the clean energy issue. This bill essentially would marry the clean energy area with economic development, because believe it or not, the Feldman bill, right? My senator and I cross-filed several great bills related to economic development, but since I'm familiar with the space of tech transfer and commercialization, this bill essentially would, one, restore funding which was gutted by the governor for the Maryland Clean Energy Center and the Maryland Energy Innovation Institute, and enhance funding. And the second thing it would do is to require all of the state economic development entities, including TEDCO, the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, to be more aggressive in investing in early stage R&D of clean tech and clean energy innovation. Because vast majority of the R&D dollars go to biohealth and biotech for good reasons, but we can use the same strategy to also advance clean energy cluster industries if we're gonna get there sooner, right? Because we have lofty goals that we have already set. So these are a sample of some of the bills that I have introduced, and I have a lot more hearings. I would love to get your support, and thank you again for your advocacy.
Thank you so much, Delegate Chi. So several people have come in who were not here before. My name is Leslie Milano, and I'm the first vice president of WDC, but also the advocacy chair. And so thank you so much to all of our delegates and senators who are coming up and talking for just a few minutes about their top priorities. Let me just ask if there are any delegates and senators who are on a time crunch who need to go next? Okay, so next we're going to hear from Delegate David Moon from District 20. So thanks so much. Come up and tell us your priorities for the session.
Great, thanks, and I apologize, I have to run and prep for bill hearings next, but I'll actually talk about some of yours, since I'm staring, I stole this off the table here, maybe I wasn't supposed to do that. But I want to say, you will be pleased to know we've moved quite a number of your priorities, at least those that are in my committee, the Judiciary Committee. So the long guns background check bill is one that was stalled for some time, and we made quick work of that one and got it onto the House floor pretty quickly in session. So thanks for your continued advocacy on that over the years. Emily Shetty's bill on exploitation of the elderly is moving through the House. And I got, one of my early bills got off the ground, which is a sodomy repeal. And so it's been a crime in Maryland since the 1700s to engage in consensual behavior. And I'm embarrassed to say that many other states, including some red states, took care of this some time ago. And then the Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, you can't criminalize people for consensual behavior. We left this thing on the books here in the years that have followed. So finally, from the 1700s to today, we are taking that off the books in the year 2020. And I won't bore you with the rest of the details, but we're going to be undertaking a number of efforts in the Judiciary Committee to remove instances of criminalized poverty. And a lot of the entry points for that are driving offenses where somewhere along the way you can't pay for something, the state then takes your driver's license away, and a series of cascading effects can happen after that. So we're trying to iron a lot of that out through some bills. Brian Frosch has a bill to stop suspending licenses altogether for these non-payment of tickets. So I'm hopeful we'll keep the work going on that. So thank you again for coming out today, and I hope you...
Can you just say a word about the pre-release centers?
The pre-release centers, yeah. So that's on your list. That's going to be one of the more tricky issues. The governor's folks are trying to get away with, I think, some temporary Band-Aid proposals to get, and the issue is that we have men who receive through dedicated centers who are incarcerated services to transition them into normal society again. And we used to have a dedicated center for women that was shut some number of years ago, and this has materialized again as a point of contention, and so folks want to see equity in the services we provide men and women. And there are an increasing number of women incarcerated in the state, so it's a real issue. Depending on who you talk to, the cost to get a new center up and running could be $26 million, it could be less. And here's where I'm sort of at this. If you've heard about the Kerwin funding proposals that are currently before you, one aspect of this that I will say, and it's one reason that I'm in favor of a larger proposal, a proposal that raises on the order of $2 billion this session, is that if we do that, other things I've been working on, like marijuana legalization, those funds will be freed up for criminal justice initiatives such as the unfunded Women's Pre-Release Center and a number of other priorities we have. If we kick the can down the road on the funding, then almost certainly all of the remaining revenue sources, sports betting, marijuana, whatever, they're all going to be used for the Kerwin plan for years into the future. And so I think there really is there's more to this than just the school funding that's at stake. So that's the primary reason we're pushing that. But I have a long list, I kid you not, that I keep it in my hotel room, that is all of the unfunded problems. We don't have body cams statewide. We don't have alternatives to cash bail statewide. We don't have equal services for women leaving the correction system. And I don't see any appetite for the Assembly to fund it. So frankly, getting this Kerwin funding package done this year at a $2 billion level, not a $400 million or less level, means that some of these other things that we care about that are not the first priority of most of my colleagues might actually finally get funded. So keep that in mind.
so much, Delegate David Moon. So, did you want to go next, or? Yeah, I mean, actually, no,
Senator,
sorry,
please.
Delegate, okay. So we're gonna hear from Senator Bryce Feldman, and he's in District 15. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here, and I am looking. Let me also acknowledge my colleague on the Senate I'm on the Senate Finance Committee. I serve as the Vice Chair along with Senator Ben Kramer. And we, in that committee, probably have the broadest subject matter jurisdiction of any committee here in the General Assembly. We deal with everything involving healthcare policy, clean energy policy. We've done a lot of heavy lifting. When I say healthcare, that includes pharmaceutical drug pricing, medical cannabis, and all the labor issues. So, minimum wage, all the heavy lifting in the General Assembly in 2019 came out of the Senate Finance Committee. So just real quickly looking at your agenda items, in fact, it's topical. Today, two of my bills, which are on your list, I chair something called the Health Insurance Coverage Protection Commission with Delegate Pena-Melnick, which is set up to deal with healthcare issues and what happens if the Affordable Care Act is deemed unconstitutional. Well, how's Maryland going to respond? So today, if you happen to want to come visit Ben and myself at 1 o'clock, the two bills on the healthcare side, one is entitled Health Insurance Consumer Protections. So we're going to put in law under Feldman bill here, Kramer's on there, all the ACA protections, so that if in fact the ACA is deemed unconstitutional, we're going to still have protections in Maryland for, in terms of pre-existing conditions, keeping your kids on until age 26, and a whole range of other things beyond those high-profile issues. People don't realize that it's much more, much beyond those two high profiles. So we're going to have a bill to do that. A related bill, which is also on your list, having to do with anti-discrimination provisions. But as a hospital, you can't deny coverage based on somebody's gender identity or a whole range of other provisions, which are in the ACA currently, but again, would go away if the ACA is deemed unconstitutional. So those are two of my bills. We're going to have hearings today on those very, very significant topics. On the working family section, these are also bills in the Senate Finance Committee. I'm pleased to report that one of the bills, wage history and wage range, which deals with this wage gap topic where you ask, in Montgomery County, we've done some things. We have a bill that we just passed out of the Senate Finance Committee last night, that bill. And that's Susan Lee's bill on our side, and I'm not sure who the House, Karen Lewis Young on this. So that bill will be on the floor of the Senate in the next day or so. It came out of the committee. Family medical leave insurance program. That is a result, that issue. I was the chair of the task force that worked on this issue along with Delegate Ariana Kelly. We produced reports over each of the last couple of years. And that bill we haven't heard in the Finance Committee. We're going to have that hearing next week and just before. And so again, we've got broad issue on clean energy. Last year I was the sponsor of the Clean Energy Jobs Act to take us to 50% renewable energy by 2030. And we have several bills building on that this session to put Maryland out front on the issue of climate change and increase use, well, solar, we're going to go big. We're going to go 50% renewable by 2030 under the bill from last year. Thankfully, the governor did not veto the bill. He let it become law. And so it's big step up in solar and tremendous economic potential for our state on solar, the solar jobs and the rest. So with that, I don't know who's next up, but I'll take some questions. Yes? We had that hearing yesterday, and one of the topics within the clean energy world is we've got some things that are still deemed by many people to be dirty. One includes the Dickerson, the incineration plant in Montgomery County. And so we have a bill to remove that from Tier 1. This has been a topic, and this subject is something called black liquor, which is also considered. So both of those bills, and in fact, Laura Charkoudian and I, who just walked in, toured the Kafana plant in Dickerson, and she pledged when she walked out that one of her #1 priorities in life is to get rid of that plant in Montgomery County. But we had the hearing, we had that hearing just yesterday. One final, I should say, since she walked in, we're working actually very closely together on a whole bunch of bills, Lori and I, but we have some rules from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, that is going to make it more difficult for states around the United States to incentivize the use of renewable energy. And Lori and I have been working closely. This is a big national issue. The Trump administration's FERC in a 2-to-1 decision pretty much, how would you characterize what they did to clean energy, the states that are promoting clean energy?
Decimating our ability.
Correct. So we're trying to figure out as a state how we're going to respond, just like we're doing with the ACA, just like we're doing on clean energy. I'll just leave you. All those subjects are in the hands of Senator Ben Cramer and Brian Feldman in the Finance Committee, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Feldman. Next, we're going to hear from Delegate Esvero from District 39.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to your state capital. Welcome to Annapolis. And welcome to the House Office building. As was mentioned, my name is Delegate Gabriel Acevero. I represent the 39th District, which is the northwestern part of Montgomery County. If you live in unincorporated Gaithersburg, Montgomery Village, Germantown, Clarksburg, or the town of Washington Grove, I am proud to represent you here in Annapolis. I sit on the House Appropriations Committee, so we oversee our state's capital and operating budget. We oversee social services, and we're the folks who are dealing with 2 big bills on a really important issue this session, and that's education and our public school system. I'm proud to report that my committee, the Appropriations Committee, a few weeks ago voted out House Bill 1, the Build to Learn Act, which is great because it will bring over, yep, give it up for the Build to Learn Act. Because it will bring over $400 million back to Montgomery County for school construction. And I want to thank all of my colleagues in the delegation who worked at this so that we can ensure that whether it's increased class sizes or crumbling infrastructure, that we as the largest school district in the state, we have the resources that we need to provide our kids with the 21st century classroom systems where they can learn, right? In addition to that, my committee is dealing with the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which is the second piece of legislation from the Kirwan Commission. And it's really important. We're dealing with amendments right now. We're really hopeful about its passage, and we're asking for your continued engagement on that because we know that our public schools, MCPS, is our crown jewel here in Montgomery County. It's the reason why a lot of businesses, organizations, nonprofits, and families move to our county and choose to live there is because of our schools. So we have to ensure that we're not just taking care of our schools, but investing in our kids. So real quick, I want to just say I support your priorities. Thank you all very much for coming down here and not just educating us on it, but for being present and for advocating for communities who could not be here today, right? Oftentimes those closest to the pain are closest to the solution, but seldom are they closest to power. And what that means is that we have to bring not just their concerns and their pain, but we're representing their issues in a very intersectional way, all right? So I want to thank you all for being here real quick in terms of priorities. And let me just say, I was looking at your plan your route list. I didn't see Delegate Janelle Wilkins from District 20 or myself on here, but just to let you know, I am in room 225, and Delegate Wilkins is in suite 350. She was just promoted to parliamentarian, which is a huge job, making sure that we all not just follow the rules, but are aware of the rules, because if we don't know the rules, it's just complete chaos. So if we could give it up for Delegate Wilkins on being the new parliamentarian. She's at 350 and I'm in 225. We're happy to meet with you all to discuss any of your priorities or concerns. As far as my priorities, real quick, I have a good bit of bills, but I want to highlight just a couple. One is relating to our public school curriculums. Equally as important to where our kids learn and who our kids are learning from is what they're learning. And we have to start looking at our public school curriculums and ensuring that they're culturally relevant and that students are seeing themselves represented in the curriculum just as much as they are seeing themselves represented in the individuals who are providing the instruction. And so what that bill would do is create a commission with equal representation. Actually got the idea from a friend who's a state rep in Colorado. Her name is Leslie Harrod, amazing person. That sets up a commission with equal representation to look at our public school system. There is a sunset date, so they have to come back a year from now to let us know their findings and then to advise state and local boards of education on how to improve their curriculum to make it more culturally relevant for all of our kids, right? Because this is not just about students of color, this is about all of our kids. We live in a global village, we live in a diverse world, and our kids have to be aware of that reality. The second thing is universal basic income. Yes, y'all look so excited about that topic. I reintroduced a bill relating to universal basic income. Full disclosure, I introduced UBI before Andrew Yang announced his candidate for president. Okay, no shame in that. And I'm reintroducing it. As folks know, well, for folks who don't know, universal basic income is one of the most effective anti-poverty programs that we can enact to put to put money back into the hands of low-income residents. And what this bill would do would be consistent to what was passed in Hawaii and New Hampshire, that in essence would study how we would implement this at the state level. It's already done in Alaska, and we can certainly see how it could be done here in Maryland. Lastly, and most important, is the issue of police transparency and accountability. It is huge. Anton Black was a 19-year-old teen that was killed in police custody. I introduced a bill called Anton's Law and reintroduced it this session. It's House Bill 1090. And in essence, it deals with three things. One is the Maryland Public Information Act, particularly as it relates to the information that we, the public, can get once we request it, related to an investigation or a police investigation. Two, it deals with the Law Enforcement Officer's Bill of Rights, particularly a part that says only a sworn officer can investigate other sworn officers. So that means there is no public oversight in terms of how investigations are conducted. And three, it deals with use of force standards, particularly deadly use of force. Right now, the standard is if an officer uses deadly force, he, she, or they, in essence, can say, I feared for my life, and that is the standard. And that should never be the standard. And so Anton's Law, which is named after Anton Black, will be, they have a hearing on next week, March 3rd, before the Judiciary Committee. We know that Montgomery County is not immune to this issue, whether it's Robert White, whether it's the incidences of use of excessive force. We have to create that trust between law enforcement and the communities that they serve, and this is how we do that. So I hope I can count on your support. I know I can count on the support of the leadership of the Women's Democratic Club of Montgomery County. Thank you all again for coming out. Thank you for your advocacy, and know that you don't have an ally, but a co-conspirator in me, all right? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Antonero from District 39. Next, we're going to hear from Delegate Laura Turkudian from District 20.
Thank you all so much for being here, and for all of your continued work. I only have a couple minutes. I have a hearing that I don't know if you had a chance to kind of pick up on exactly how frantic the pace is right now, but I have this hearing, we had everything in line, we were all ready to go, and then about an hour before the hearing, we find out about an Attorney General opinion as it relates to the bill, and so now we're sort of scrambling to figure out how we want to adjust it, and things just sort of happen last minute, and we're always sort of responding to those things. So it makes it very fun. I feel like every time I talk to a group of people that I have worked with, I still am a member of the Women's Democratic Club. I was part of the advocacy day 2-3 years ago, and it is such an incredible honor to be here representing many of you and all of my constituents. And I feel like every day I just want to thank my constituents for sending me here, because even in the most hectic and chaotic and crazy days and the 14-hour days, it remains a tremendous honor. I have a couple of bills that I'll just mention. I think, as Senator Feldman said, I am working on a lot of the energy issues. I have a number of clean energy issues, trying to get at the intersection of energy, really looking at energy justice, really looking at how we target our clean energy in a way that is supportive and especially beneficial to low-income people who struggle more with paying their energy bills. specifically also looking at this FERC issue and what are the creative things that we can do at the state level that can overcome the attempts by the federal government, by the Trump administration to override our ability to move clean energy forward. I also have bills that are related to protecting consumers from medical debt, predatory medical debt collection. I have a bill related to protecting workers from wage theft and specifically retaliation when they go to address the wage theft issues. I have, folks may be familiar with, I know many of you have been working on community choice energy, which is a form of energy democracy, which lets local government aggregate and purchase energy on behalf of residents, brings in more clean energy and reduces the price of energy for ratepayers. And then I'll just mention, I also have the crisis intervention team bill that supports law enforcement, just sort of building on what Delegate Aspero was talking about. It supports law enforcement to respond to behavioral health crises in ways that get people into treatment instead of into incarceration. So I am thrilled to have you here. I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be here with you. Happy to talk more about any of those things, both during session, but also when we have a chance to see each other in all the many events that we get to run into each other on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Delegate Tarfudian. We do have Delegate Shetty here and Delegate Crutchfield, but I don't know if you're still eating. And also Delegate Clark, who's been here. So I'm going to hand it over to Delegate Clark. I do want to say that Delegate Shetty's office helped, and actually Delegate Shetty herself helped us to get this room for today. She signed that out for us, and her staff worked with us to set it up. So thank you so much for doing that. It was really helpful. We'll be calling you next year. And thank you so much. This is Delegate Al Carr from District 18.
Thank you. I see some District 18 folks here. Thanks for coming out. So I'm on the Health and Government Operations Committee. That in addition to health, we also do finance, procurement, sunshine laws, number of other things. So we're very, very busy this year. And Senator Feldman touched on some of the health issues going on. I'm also, Delegate Corman is the chair of our Montgomery County House delegation. I'm the vice chair. So I was just going to talk about some of the bills that are going through our delegation, as you know, all of our statewide bills sort of started on one track starting in January, and they're moving through, but there's this whole other set of bills that are going on a different track. That's all our local bills that only affect Montgomery County, and those started in the fall. So our delegation has been very busy starting in the fall and winter working on a number of local bill issues. But there's a great bill that's Delegate Moon's bill that is public financing for school board elections in Montgomery County. That's a bill that's passed our delegation, and that's going to go to the Ways and Means Committee for consideration. Delegate Solomon has a great bill with Senator Corman, which is giving the County Council's Inspector General oversight over the Montgomery County schools, MCPS. Another great bill. You might have heard of Delegate Moon's bill about golf courses and making sure that they pay their fair share of taxes in Montgomery County. And also, of course, the boundary issues are heating up, and we've had some bills in our delegation about that. Delegate Moon's bill basically requires a statement when you sign a real estate contract that school boundaries are subject to change. And I think there are similar bills going in the Howard County delegation on that same topic. And I know one of your priority bills is the Stable Homes Act, which has been also known as Just Cause Eviction in prior years. So that bill, again, has passed the House delegation, and it's before the Environment and Transportation Committee. So if that's something that's important to you, talk to I think there's 4 or 5 delegates from Montgomery County, including the chair on the Environment and Transportation Committee. So please put in a good word for that bill. Also on the topic of affordable housing, we have a number of good government bills for our housing agency, the HOC in Montgomery County. Two of them are mine. One is Delegate Shetty's, and its idea is to promote the important mission of affordable housing by strengthening the public's confidence in our housing agency and with some common sense governance. So those bills were all pretty much settled in terms of the county delegation. Now they moved to the standing committees. And so those are ones that you can watch. And if you're interested, please feel free to weigh in. I left some sheets on the tables if you want to see all the other stuff that I'm personally working on. Tomorrow, I have an interesting bill that's going to be heard in Ways and Means, which is a ban on developer contributions to county executives and county council members across the entire state. And so they're the sort of a patchwork of rules. Some counties have that ban, others don't, and this would just make it consistent. We have public financing, so there's really less of a need for that kind of thing anymore. So
What about the legislature?
there are other bills for that. I've sponsored that bill in prior years. I think Senator Pinsky puts that bill in every year. I'm a supporter of public financing for the legislature as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, and that is Delegate Farr from District 18. And next we're going to hear from Delegate Shetty, also from District 18.
Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Annapolis. I know many of you have been here in the past, and we're always so excited to have you here. It's a special honor to get to participate in this event, in part because I worked with Fran and other amazing leaders in your club to help put this together a few years ago, and I know exactly how much work goes into it. So thank you, Leslie, for all your awesome work and for all of WDC's engagement. This is my second year in the legislature, and I've learned a lot in the last year. This year I've got 16 bills that I'm working on. WDC, I'm so proud that you guys are supporting some of the efforts that I'm working on, especially those related to what we can do to protect seniors from financial exploitation. I've got a package of different bills I'm working on that. I have one bill that actually I defended on the floor yesterday that Diana came to testify on. Was heard so late in the committee she had to run back to Montgomery County, but her testimony was certainly powerful enough that they passed it unanimously through our committee, all because of Diana. So now we're expecting a strong vote on final passage tomorrow on the House floor. And then I have another bill I'm working on with the Attorney General's office that will help seniors who have been financially exploited. Right now, since 2016, then Delegate Kramer, now Senator Kramer, pursued legislation that would allow the Attorney General's office to pursue these criminals across state lines even, who have targeted seniors and taken assets from them. That, under current law, is a violation of the Consumer Protection Act, but it requires a huge amount of court resources to be able to actually go after these folks. There's one guy in the Attorney General Brian Frosch's office who handles these cases. He, since 2016, has gotten about 150 cases referred. He's only been able to pursue 15 of them because it's so resource intensive and he's one person. Ironically, the very first case that he took on happened to be my godmother, who at the time lived in Bethesda. And she was victimized by a huge crime ring of people who ended up stealing over $150,000 from her under like the guise of fake charities and other lottery scams and whatnot. I mean, this is a really big problem in our community. So because of this awesome bill that Senator Kramer passed, the Attorney General's office was able to intervene, pursue action against some of the criminals, and recover some of the assets. But I want to help make sure that they're able to pursue more cases and recover more assets. So I'm working with their office on legislation that would allow them to pursue these cases through the administrative courts, which is a much quicker process. Still guarantees due process, but is one that will allow the AG's office to really go after these criminals and recover more assets from more seniors. So that bill got a unanimous vote out of the Economic Matters Committee last week, and it's coming hopefully this week to Judiciary for a final vote out, and then it'll be on the floor next. So that bill is moving through the process. I've got a bunch of other things related to the environment, prescription drug costs, lower prescription drug costs for patients, and good governance, as Delegate Carr mentioned as well. We printed a one-pager that I think we gave to Diana that might be already distributed, or we will be. Okay, thank you. But if anybody has any questions for me about anything that I'm working on at any point, we welcome your continued engagement. We'd love working with you. I'm so happy that you guys could be here today. I apologize, I have to run to votes now, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much for Delegate Chetty. And next we're going to hear from Delegate Charlotte Crutchfield from District 19. Thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon. So I'm Delegate Charlotte Crutchfield. I represent District 19 in Montgomery County. And I'm gonna have to run because I'm on the same Judiciary Committee that Delegate Chetty is on, and we have to have a vote, unfortunately. But what I wanted to really just say to you all is thank you. Because you have really pushed for me 3 bills. And I'm hoping that we actually make this legislation. And those bills deal with the Women's Pre-Release Unit. Okay? In our state, we do not have 1 for women. There are 5 for men, and we need to make that change. And I do believe through all of your efforts, and I don't see Beth in here at all, but so there is a second hearing going on. So I had a hearing on 2 bills yesterday, then I had another hearing last week on 1 bill. So she's attending the ones in the Senate right now. But what I want to just say is, again, if it was not for your hard work on this, really, really spearheading and moving this for me, we would not be in the situation we are in right now, which is a very positive place, okay? So I really, truly appreciate all you have done, and I want to just say that you continue to be a force, okay? You know how to do this, right? So you can definitely make and pull that pendulum forward in bills and making the advocacy really work here in Annapolis for us. So again, I appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know, your organization is really near and dear to me because I was on the executive board of this organization way back when. So I appreciate it again, and let me run off. And if you need to reach out to me, please do. I'm happy to answer any questions. Just contact my office. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate Crutchfield. And next, we have a minute to, we're going to hear from Senator Waldstreicher from District 18. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for coming down to Annapolis. I do this trip every day, and so I'm kind of used to it, but I know it can be quite a trek, especially from some of the western portions of Montgomery County. So thank you all for being here. It's my honor to serve as Vice Chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Senator Bill Smith is the chair. He's doing a fantastic job. Our committee is underway. We had so many bills today that we started about an hour earlier than most of the hearing. So, got it, happy to. So the Judicial Proceedings Committee has 2 big bills that I'm sure you've heard a lot about today. The first is the Women's Pre-Release Center. That bill is on the calendar for today. We're going to have a long debate and hearing related to the bill. You have my full support. I'm going to fight each and every day to get this bill passed. You've got a wonderful sponsoring Senator Washington, who is an incredible advocate on behalf of this legislation. It's the right thing to do. And right now, we're fortunate to be in good economic times. And it's an expensive bill, as many of you know, not as expensive as, of course, as the department says it is. We can do this with a relatively modest investment. And you got to take advantage of when times are good, and you have the tax revenue to do it. And building this facility is incredibly important to you, I know, and it's incredibly important to me. And I join you in this fight. On Friday, this upcoming Friday, today's Wednesday, the day after tomorrow, my committee will begin debating and possibly voting on a bill to require universal background checks for long term. It's a bill I'm proud to co-sponsor. Senator Lee is the primary sponsor. We had a lot of debate on this bill last year. It almost passed, didn't get quite through, and this year we think it's going to move. So I know many of you have been advocating for a long time on this bill, sometimes wearing the mom shirt, sometimes wearing your WDC hat, and I can't say thank you enough. Your advocacy makes a huge difference here. So I know it's just, you spend the day here and you have lunch and then you go home, but actually, so many of you are continuing to contact us before this and after this, and it really matters. The offices you call, when someone calls my office, to leave from my office to back here, we hear from about that, and it really so far. For those who are staying for hearings, it will be eye-opening if you've never seen it before, and perhaps even a little bit dramatic. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Senator Wallstreicher. And I didn't miss anyone else, did I? I don't think. Okay, great. Well, we're going to wrap it up then with Senator Wallstreicher's words. And so, thank you so much. We're just going to wrap up a little bit more. Did you want to?
And well, when you wrap. Wrap it. Go ahead, wrap.
Is it an announcement, sort of?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Okay. So we will. We do have a couple of announcements. I know that there may be a couple of things from the WDC general perspective. But let's just hear from Fran, and then we'll just wrap up in general. Please continue to eat. We have a whole dessert display here. It has hardly been touched, so we want you to have some of that, and I'll be back.
I have heard from Beth that our bill, the pre-release bill, is going to be heard 4th. She's going to text me when it is up. But when we finish here, it would be a great idea for any of you who can stay for a bit to go to the hearing in the Senate Judiciary. And if you follow me, I'll lead you there. Thank you.
Yes. And here comes Lauren.
Okay,
Stewart?
really, it's kind of a public service announcement. There's 3 seats up for the Board of Ed coming up. That's a nonpartisan race. But I just want to make sure everyone is aware that a candidate has met with the Republican Party, and then the same day started an anti-busing group on Facebook. The same day he met with the Republican Party, and lo and behold, he's now filed to run for Board of Ed. And his name is Stephen Austin, and he's been a resident of Montgomery County for 3.5 years. So anyway, I just wanted to make this public service announcement to say, pay attention to the Board of Ed this year. It's a nonpartisan race. I'm going to let you know that the Republican Party has, there's people are sending this guy a lot of money, and he's going to be well funded. And today, I was just notified that he's changed his party to unaffiliated. So he is trying to distance himself. But be aware that he met with the Republican Party before he started a wedge issue on Facebook, and now he is running for Board of Ed. So,
Which seat?
at large. There's 13 people running, lots of choices. Go research them. But just be aware that Stephen Austin is tied to the Republican Party.
And just to be clear, for those of you who are not following the very delicately put language from Laura, the wedge issue is boundary analysis. That's different from a boundary study. Boundary analysis just looks at where are the lines, where are the vacancies, where are we overcrowded. This is a group of parents who live around me in Potomac who are basically saying we don't want those people in our schools. So just bear in mind that's what she's talking about in her nice polite language. I'm a little less so.
So thank you so much, everyone. Looks like we have actually ended this portion early. And so we're just going to stay in the room. This is 1 o'clock. And we're going to say, yeah, we have the room until 3 o'clock. The hearings begin at 2, but actually ours begin at 2. So you're more than welcome to leave here, and I guess, Fran, you're going to leave now to go to the hearing. So if you want to go to the hearings, now is a good time to do that. I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming here. We would not be, we wouldn't be here with all of our senators and delegates had you not shown up and really brought our issues to the forefront. So thank you for what you're doing. We expect that we're going to see you back here next year. But in the interim, we have lots of amazing things happening with WDC, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Is there a process for providing you with feedback from our meetings, and if so, what is that process?
And so, we will send out an email to everyone with a little survey that just looks to gather some feedback about the day, about the meetings, about the structure, and things like that. And then that'll be coming to your email by a Google survey. So please do that while it's fresh in your mind. And then just one last thank you to Joanne Corwis. Come over here, Joanne. You did so much for today, and we are so very grateful committee, but really as, in large part, the coordinator for all of what you saw today. So thank you so very much, Joanne.